Whether you are on an adventure or at the downtown cafe, your answers are no more than a sniff away. Dog Training 360's purpose is simple: to teach you why dogs do what they do, as well as the action steps you need to take to have better communication, connection, consistency, and conceivability with your dog. We're gonna talk about leash training overall and the importance of it, and it's something that comments that I've gotten kind of all year last year on our conversations. Really, through a fair amount of our podcasts, we talked about having the leash on your dog, and over and over and over and over, people were like, "Hi, you talked about it, and I get it, but we can't do it, and it's too hard," and it just, people get really overwhelmed by that feel, and that thought of having a leash on your dog all the time. So I want to get into a little bit more in depth about what that is and what that means, and why, we say that, and maybe give people some ideas or tips or some suggestions on making a little bit easier for them to understand this concept. So the leash comes on as soon as you bring that dog, through the door. Puppy, doesn't matter if it's a 6-week-old puppy or a 12-year-old dog. It comes into your home and the leash goes on. Obviously, through puppyhood, the leash is going to be on a lot longer than it would be a 12-year-old dog. Maybe they got rid of the 12-year-old dog because they didn't know how to train it, and it needs work. But for the most part, the leash goes on. So I'm just going to kind of talk through, Shannon, how I explain it and what I tell people, and then as you have questions along the way or maybe something that triggers, let's talk about it. So leash comes on, and I recommend using a carabiner and a rope, because the other thing that gets caught up with people is the dogs start carrying around the leash or chewing on the leash, and then you spend money on leashes, and we don't want the dog chewing up the leash, and what if they chew up the leash? And so puppies are going to do that, dogs are going to do that, and so I always recommend just using a little cord, climbing rope, if you will, and a carabiner, and it's attached to them. And depending upon the size of the dog is going to be really dependent upon how long your leash should be. But you should be able to hold onto your leash standing up and walking around, and your dog be about 3 feet-ish away from you. If they need to be, they can lay down, they can get comfortable. They're not, hung up on the leash, but also they're not tripping you and dragging the leash around and tangling you up either. So,
which is another reason why it's good to do a rope, because you can cut it off and you don't feel bad about it. So if you have to change the length of it, because you really learn that from experimenting. You have to do it a couple days until you're like, ooh, I don't like
feel right.
No. And then if you just have a rope, you just retie it on there, and you can just cut it right off. And you don't have to go buy a whole other leash that's a different size. Leashes only come in certain sizes, and you might want it to be a 4.5-foot leash, but they only come in 4 or 6, right?
Yep,
so
exactly.
if you have a rope, you can do it custom to you.
Yeah. And then if it gets dirty, you just get another one. I mean, they're gonna piddle on it. They're gonna.
I like to go to Lowe's.
Yeah,
the ropes come on a big spool. And then you can cut off a big chunk, and you have a whole big old spool of rope left. You can use it for. Then when you need a long line, you have that is already there, because you just have a whole big spool of rope, and it's less than $10 to buy just a whole big old hank of rope. To do all
and who
kinds
cares
of
if it gets
things
chewed? And you just get another one. Cut another one. So. When I tell people that, the leash goes on and the dog is attached, that becomes very, very overwhelming, and they get it's almost over the top. I don't know how to do that. And here's what it means. If your dog is hanging in the same room as you, the rope, the leash should be on. Doesn't have to be attached to anything. Doesn't have to be attached to you. But if that dog chooses to leave the room, you go pick up the rope, not the dog. You don't have a conversation with the dog, and you bring them back into the room that you're in or the area that you're in. If they choose to leave you again, then you're going to have to attach the dog to something or someone until they settle into routines, and then you drop the leash and they learn to stay with you. So if I get up and I head into the kitchen and the dog doesn't follow, then you go get the rope and you bring them along to the kitchen. And people say, well, what if I'm just going in to get a drink? That's okay. They need to come with you to come in and get a drink. And then you can go back into, watching TV or working in your office or whatever that is. So the purpose for the rope is to prevent error because dogs don't have to make a mistake to learn that they shouldn't do it. If they never have the opportunity through their naughty stages of growth and maturity and into your home, then they don't do it. But whether you've adopted a dog, rescued a dog, no matter what the age, they're going to test you. They're going to go through cycles of being naughty and showing you what they
think they want to do.
And why maybe the person got rid of them, which is never okay because training fixes the majority of things. But people will give up on dogs. And if they keep a leash on, you can prevent wall chewing, furniture chewing, peeing on the floor, getting on counters and getting food off the counters, jumping,
barking at the window,
even barking at the front door, getting on furniture,
getting in the laundry,
getting in the dishwasher,
even kids' homework,
chewing Legos. So that it really is teaching them how to exist in a household and not make error. So does a leash need to be attached all the time? Only if they're choosing to leave you. Because when a dog leaves you, there's nothing but trouble for them to get into. And my recommendation of time is with puppies is until they're 2. And for rescues and older dogs, so if you got a dog at, say 1.5 years, you don't want to just wait until they're 2.
Right.
You would keep them on a leash probably a good 8 to 10 months attached to a leash. It becomes normal for them to have a leash and dragging it around. And it also starts helping with leash manners because they're creating the tension when they step on it and they get it kind of caught on stuff, that they're feeling that tension and learning how to give to it without you being a part of it.
Yeah, getting untangled.
Yeah. And then eventually you'll find that the leash is just dragging around and you just put it on them and all of a sudden, you take the leash off and they're like, woohoo, I'm out of here. And so you have to keep the leash on long enough that it becomes their friend. I tell people all the time, this can be your dog's best friend, and you can call it and name it whatever you want to name it. It's going to be their buddy because you want to get it to a point where it just becomes so much a part of them that when the leash comes off, it doesn't really come off. They're kind of asking for it to be back on, or they change their routines and habit because the leash is prevented. The other thing that it stops is when our dogs are doing something that they're not supposed to do, we get up and go to the dog, and it creates them to run away from us, and it creates a fear. It creates undue pressure that you shouldn't be putting on them, that if you went to the end of the rope and stopped them from doing what they're doing, then it doesn't create that conflict. And they never learn to run from you. And they never have that fear in them because dogs go through such learning curves through the first 2 years.
Yeah, because if you chase them during a fear stage, then it's even more pressure. It's already a lot of pressure to run because that's what people do, run at the dog.
Yep.
Stop doing that, whatever, and that's already a ton of pressure. And then if they're in a fear stage, then it's just out of control. And then it can create even like just crazy things. Yeah. Like we're afraid of the rug, or we're afraid of the floor, or just like, totally bizarre.
You just go to the end of the rope. You don't even look at the dog. You just go to the end of the rope, or the leash. And so it really shouldn't be a feel of being so overwhelmed that the leash is on the dog.
Right.
And that if your dog doesn't choose to follow, that you need to pick up the leash and take them along with you. Mm-hmm. And then, every day has to be in your hand. Mm-hmm. But if I'm busy doing something, if I'm busy doing dishes, mm-hmm. I can't be aware, and the dogs know that. Like, oh, she's not paying attention. I'm going to go. Mm-hmm. And so by having them on a leash and hooked to my belt mm-hmm. loop mm-hmm. while I'm doing dishes, I can feel tension. I can, mm-hmm. And it makes me mm-hmm. become aware of them. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of keeps me in kind of like the dogs know that I'm paying attention to them too.
I think that's why it's overwhelming to people, because they think I have to pay attention to my dog all the time.
Yeah.
Yes. You are supposed to be doing that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And having the leash is like, it makes it real.
Yeah.
Like they know they're supposed to be paying attention to the dog all the time, but then the leash makes that a real thing. Yeah. Like that they have to. And that is why it's overwhelming. So just know that you're going to feel that way.
Yeah.
That's how it's supposed to be. And it gets easier.
Yeah.
Because you learn how to pay attention to the dog.
Right.
Without paying attention to the dog.
Yeah.
Like it teaches you that.
Yeah.
And your tool for that is the leash.
Yeah.
Because as you say, you sometimes get doing things and you can't pay attention.
Yeah.
But when you see that leash move.
Yeah.
Or you feel it tug on you.
Yep.
Then you're paying attention.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so it is overwhelming because you're not used to paying attention to a dog all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a lot, and we are like have a lot of stimulation in our lives anyway.
Yeah.
We're looking at everything and hearing everything and doing our work and listening to music and having our notifications that people liked our cereal for that day or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's like paying attention to something all the time. The dog is a huge addition to the workload of your mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're supposed to feel like it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to feel like it is.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But if you can just stick with it.
Yeah.
And learn how to use the leash as much as the dog, it gets easier.
In a short amount of time, it really does.
Oh, like a
easier.
day.
Yeah.
Not even a day, maybe.
Yeah.
Because also, I really like it because I think it actually takes away how much you have to pay attention to the dog. And I will tell you an example how. Like, if I'm at the computer in my office, I have dog beds all over my office, but they are behind me.
Right.
So if I'm using a computer and my dog's just on the bed and I'm supposed to be paying attention to whether they're there or not, it's really hard. They're behind me. I have to keep turning around. It's distracting me because I'm like listening really hard for the dog. But if I have the leash on the dog and the leash is attached to my belt, I can do whatever work I want until the leash moves, tugs on me, and then I can pay attention to the dog, right? And so it actually helps you so you can focus on both things at the same time without really having to pay attention to your dog.
Completely.
Which is the whole point of why to do it.
Yep. Yep. Well, and I think that people struggle just in general, like knowing what that is or what that feels like, or it really can become hard to understand why we're doing what we're why do we have to have the leash on. But we get called into homes all the time and go, well, if the leash was on, then you wouldn't have this problem.
Oh, like a story would be the dog starts on the bed, they sneak out of the room, and then they go and steal, like, your kid's football.
Yep.
And run all around the house and chew up the, stuff.
Yep.
That's one. Like, sometimes dogs, like, because we really, really value the football, right?
Right.
It's really important. We need it for practice. The kid really likes it. They play with it all the time. So the dog knows this is really important.
Yep.
And I really want it.
Yep.
And so they get obsessed. Then it's this game where they're always obsessed of sneaking away and stealing that.
Yeah.
Because it's high value. And then it was really fun because you're not paying attention to the computer anymore. You're chasing me all over the house with this football, right?
Exactly.
That's like a really classic example of a thing that happens all the time that's way, way preventable with the leash because the dog just can't sneak away.
Yeah. Yeah. And then as long as you're giving the dog playtime.
Yeah.
Your play, with you.
Well, and they can have stuff like you don't just tie him up and then just say, be here. It's not like time out.
Right.
It's this is our life. This is what we're doing.
This is your space.
So let them have a bed.
Yeah.
Let them have their blankie.
Right.
Let them have a bone. Let them have a toy. The toy that's always only the toy for while you're using the computer or something.
Yeah.
It integrates it into your life instead of thinking. And maybe people do find it overwhelming because they think of it as a timeout.
Yeah.
Because they're not used to the leash and it being a part of their life and stuff. And you just have to change your mindset. Like a playpen for a baby.
Right? Exactly.
Like the playpen for the baby isn't a punishment. It keeps the baby contained in there so they're not getting into trouble. And the leash, when you use it this way, is kind of like the playpen for the baby or the swing for the baby. Or, like the baby's in there having fun. They're playing. They're taking a nap. They have their toys, whatever.
Yeah.
It's not a punishment.
No.
It's just so they're not getting into trouble.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that happens with, with what you're saying is when we have a mindset and we understand that it's a dog.
Right.
And dogs are genetically bred to grow up and either contribute to being a producer.
Sure, of the pack.
Or you get kicked out.
And you're totally alone.
And you're all alone and you have to go develop your own pack.
Mm-hmm.
And so dogs naturally want to feel like they're growing up and they should move out, just like our kids should. We grow up and it's finding independence. But dogs don't do that, and they don't have to do that anymore.
Right. Well, we want them to be a part of our pack.
Right.
We don't want them to. We don't say, "Oh, little doggy, we just bought and we love so much."
Yeah.
Now that you're grown up, go away on your own.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And that's a thing because people will do that. Oh,
no,
you're ugly now. I don't like you as an adult, and they send him to the pound. That's unfortunately you don't match the furniture anymore. We changed the furniture, so I'm getting rid of you. And that's what's happened to the dogs that are in the rescues and the Humane Society and the animal shelter is. They've kind of been kicked out of their pack and then they've got to reestablish things. And so they've been pushed out. They've learned to survive on their own. And then we bring them into our home and we want to love them and we want to feed them and we want to do all this stuff. And the dog still genetically thinks that it needs to grow up and move out or find its independence or start its own pack. Like they don't know that they're living in a human world or in a society that we want the dogs to be in
right
our
because
pack,
it's not a logical thought process for the dog, right? And so I love this house, it's really cool, and I get food like
the dogs stay here. Like that's not they don't have that thought process
not at all.
And so it's something that has to be learned
right
over and over, and the leash takes that piece out of it so they don't have to
be in charge
and they don't have to feel like they should grow up and grow out.
Right.
It's, oh, you want me here.
Yeah.
Oh, but I shouldn't. Oh, but you want me here. Oh, I like being here. But it's genetically, we are working against the grain of it. Completely working against the grain of it. And so you have to be a part of the picture all the time and reminding them that they are not.
Yeah. Hey, you want to be with me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not raising you to go out on your own. We're raising you to be a contributing member of our family. And no matter what you do, you're still going to be here and a part of our family. If you challenge me, I'm not going to kick you out of the pack.
Yeah. You just have to follow the rules. You stay and you follow these rules.
And you follow the rules.
Yeah.
And so it's changing that mindset that our children have a natural instinct to want to be home, to want to cling, to stay, and to form families, and we stick with our families, or find families that we can stick
fit
with,
into, community,
where a dog, the family that they're in as they grow up is, now I have to go out and either be a hunter or a reproduction to continue our population, or I go out and start all my own all over again, and take charge, and so the dogs at the adult dogs that are coming in, or adolescents that are coming in, have experienced a piece of that, and so it's comfortable for them.
Well, because they did. I moved out.
Yeah.
And I achieved my goal.
Yeah.
And then they're back in and they're like, no, I'm pretty sure
I
was supposed to be alone.
Yeah.
Because that already worked before.
Right.
And I think that, I like you, okay, but I'm really supposed to be alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's hard. It's harder.
Yes.
A lot harder.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter if you've got a puppy from a shelter.
Yeah, because the shelter is a survival mode.
Yes.
No matter when they enter it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The survival mode is the shelter. And
even if they're in a rescue that has fosters, the fosters don't take these dogs in as their own.
Well, and they don't stay there a long time either.
And it's a revolving door. Yeah. So the dogs see that.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, I'm at this place, I'm alone again.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm at this other place, I'm alone again.
Right.
And then they come to your house and they're like, when is it the time that I'm just going to be alone again?
Yeah.
Like, you have to have the dog at least 2 years.
Yeah.
Before they are like, oh, yeah, I think I'm a part of this pack now.
Yeah.
I think maybe I'm supposed to follow the rules here.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and that's
you're
a long
not
time.
Going to let me go.
Yeah. 2 years.
Yeah. Oh, how long have you had Ripley? 2
years.
Yeah. And you finally said that you've turned some kind of a corner, right?
Yeah.
She sleeps on the bed.
Right.
She accidentally got left out, and there was nothing.
Yeah.
Like, she was a chewer. I mean, that was really why the other people couldn't handle her.
Yeah.
And so it just, you have to give it time, but you have to understand that we're working against the grain of genetics. And they're not human beings. And they genetically aren't human beings to feel that. And so this leash creates that connection and continues to reinforce that we want our dogs with us. We want, don't run away from me. Don't leave me. You're not, and I'm not going to let you leave me. That you stay with me. We go here and we go into this room and we sit in the office, and then we watch TV all together on the couch, and then we have
go
dinner
to the bathroom. We go get a cookie. We get a drink of water. We go put in the laundry.
Yep.
We go outside. We take out the garbage.
Yeah.
We go to the mailbox.
Yep. And it truly is this fascinating thing that we have to remember, that we're dealing with animals. I think we forget because we're not dealing with animals from the zoo.
Well, they're really not wild. Like,
right.
If you have experienced any other kind of animals, right? Dogs are really, really amazing in how unwild they are.
Yeah.
Like,
for sure.
They're the definition of domestication. Really.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, it's really, really amazing. I have worked at the zoo.
Yeah.
And like, those animals will kill you.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, it's really dangerous.
Yeah.
They have tons of rules at the zoo. Places you can go, places you can't, things you can do, things you cannot.
Right.
Those animals never will be a dog.
Right.
They don't even like you at all.
Yeah.
And when you walk by, they try to kill you.
Yeah.
Like, it's really scary.
You are really a source of survival for them in the sense that you provide the food, but you are the food as well.
Yeah, and they don't care. Like, they're like, oh, I better be nice to you so you'll feed me again tomorrow. Oh, no.
No, yeah.
They don't care at all.
Yeah.
So, no, we're used to how amazing that dogs already are.
Right.
That they really are capable of fitting in your family and living with you and being a part of a human pack.
Yeah.
So close to naturally that you possibly can be. Yeah. That we forget that we're way spoiled because we're not trying to get like a fox or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
which, I mean, people are now trying to do.
They do. They're so naughty.
Yeah.
Don't get a fox, YouTube listeners.
Right.
Don't get a wolf hybrid, YouTube listeners or podcast listeners.
Yeah.
Like it's really, really hard because they are not a dog at all.
No.
Not even close.
No.
And having them wear a leash with you for 50 years will not make a difference.
Nope.
Those
and there's been
wild
studies
animals.
done with that.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. It sure may be fun to live with.
I mean, they're cute.
Yeah. And I have a really good friend that they raised like 4 raccoons in their house.
Oh, sure.
One at a time, but then, but they talk about how naughty and how, I mean, you kind of had to live around them, if you will. It wasn't, if they were pissy, they were pissy, and there's no
nothing
shift in it. Nothing, And so raccoon, not a dog, but it's still, we forget.
Yeah, because we're used to it. Because everybody has dogs.
Right.
Everybody has an experience with a dog.
Yeah.
Whether your family has one or not, someone you know has a dog.
Yeah.
And you've had experiences with it. And sometimes that can, you think all dogs should be those experiences that you had.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yep, for sure.
Until you get to a certain age or you have a certain number of dogs.
Yep.
Like, those experiences really mold how you accept dogs and treat dogs and have expectations of how they should be.
Yeah. So it shouldn't feel so overwhelming that you can't do it.
Just power through.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think, I can't do this, just say, Shannon and Joe said I would feel this way.
Yes.
And that it would get better if I
permission to feel it that way.
Keep doing it.
Yeah. Yep.
Because you will. You will.
And you'll reach a point where you feel like, oh, I don't even look at that. I haven't even held onto the leash for a week.
Yeah.
And the dog's with me.
Yeah.
I mean, or I've only had to go get them once, and they're sticking with you. It doesn't take that long, but you'll also realize that holding on and staying attached to the leash is such a short-lived thing, but the leash still needs and must be attached to prevent error. If you say to anybody, I just can't get them to stop jumping on the counter. Well, if they had a leash on, they wouldn't be jumping on the counter. And I talk a lot about this in my book, gosh, my dog does this. Why is the leash not on? Gosh, my dog does this. Why is the leash not on? Why is my dog doing this? Because the leash is not on. And it really, the leash can prevent and redirect so many behaviors that the leash is no longer a thing. It's just there. It's their new friend. It's their, whatever you want to call it.
And that's what you want it to be anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can do it. You can power through it. It's the most remarkable thing when you do it. And I have had a handful of clients that have actually powered through it, and their dogs are amazing. Amazing. Not just good, not just a definition of perfect, but their dogs truly are amazing. They can take them anywhere. They travel out of the country with them anywhere. They can do anything. They can have 100 people over at their house. And they're not micromanaging the dog the whole time. The dog's not jumping. They're not getting on the counters. They learn to mingle and hang out and get into the rhythm of things. And they, over and over, I get text messages from them. One, 4 years now. And she just sent me a text for the New Year's. I just want to thank you for the opportunity that I had to listen to you. And we just love our dog. And they have him off leash, up in the mountains all the time. They don't have a fenced-in yard. And he does not leave the yard. They now just, send him out to go potty, and he heads out and comes back in. But it's things that everybody wants. And if you just put the work into it, it's a long life of joy. 2 years feels like a long time, but in the big scheme of your dog's life and the journey that you're going to go on, you just can't you can't even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
2 years. Gosh, it didn't seem like we had the leash on for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to the point where they're just simply amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can do it. I know it's not the easiest thing, but you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Shannon, I'm gonna take on a challenge, and we have a new young dog. She's not a pup. She's a puppy, but she's not a newborn. She's 6-7 months old, coming into the home this next week. And when I pick her up, I'm not going to be home for the weekend. She's going to be on the road with us, and so I'm going to share a little bit about being on a leash and having her attached to me. And we've got some big events next weekend that Chris and I are going to be at with the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And Miss Caroline is going to stay in Cheyenne's care, and Patsy and the new one will be with me, and so I'm gonna send over. We'll get some YouTube videos up, kind of talking about the leash and her journey with her leash, and you'll see even out herding. When we start that process, she's going to be dragging a leash and doing that because she's a little on the wild side with the stock. So I'm going to kind of go over how I use the leash and starting out a young dog that's not a puppy on the leash stuff. And I'll just randomly, maybe 2 or 3 times a month, send an update and show everybody kind of where we're at with things. Cool. And then the other thing that I am getting ready to start really focusing on Caroline's training. And it's time for her to go back on the leash because she's at the stage in life where she's trying to cut apron strings, and she really kind of pushes away. And so it's time to have her leash
to bring her back
attached back on and bringing her back into the fold, if you will. So I'll shoot some video just to kind of add to this podcast, and we'll share that with how the leash is. I know it's hard, and we'll have 3 dogs under a year, and just kind of share that journey of the leash.
Cool.
Okay.